Hardline Hindus accused of intimidating India's minorities. Christians and Muslims say the government isn't doing enough to protect them. But is Prime Minister Narendra Modi being compromised by his nationalist roots? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Folly Bah ThibaultGuests. Minority groups in India are raising concerns about what they see as a rise in Hindu nationalism. Community leaders say attacks, vandalism and intimidation have increased since Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power in May. Christian leaders have been protesting in New Delhi after the latest attack on a church, the fifth in the Indian capital since December. Police say they have provided security to all 225 churches in the city. But critics accuse Prime Minister Modi of remaining silent on the issue. Political rivals are also accusing Modi's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party or BJP of exploiting religious divisions in the run-up to state elections in New Delhi on Saturday. We'll get to our discussion in just a moment, but first let's hear from Al Jazeera's Nidhi Dutt in New Delhi.
Police were deployed to deal with troublemakers. Instead, they watched as members of New Delhi's Christian community prayed for justice. Earlier, some of them were detained by police as they tried to deliver a letter to the Home Minister calling for action. The protesters say the police used a disproportionate amount of force during what was a peaceful demonstration.
I had to lie down on the floor and beat my hands and legs and say, I can walk inside the bus, don't rough me up. But they roughed up all the sisters and all the nuns and the women, and they dragged us and they took us to the police station in Parliament Street.
The Catholic Bishops' Conference of India wants the government to address what it describes as a growing threat to the state's secular nature.
Just because we are a minority, the majority should not take us for granted also. No? Whether minority or majority, all of us are citizens of India. So I have the same right as you have and as he has, because it is guaranteed by the Constitution of India.
Al Jazeera obtained these photographs of a church that was ransacked in New Delhi earlier this month.
No democratic freedom, no
Recent attacks on churches in New Delhi have shaken the trust not just of Christians but other Indians as well.
The present government, the whole right wing is out to finish the Christian community as well as every other community which exists. You know, they want to build India like a theocratic state. They want to convert India into something like Pakistan or Afghanistan. The only difference being there you have Muslim Talibans, here you have Hindu Talibans.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power promising development, but observers say incidents like this have taken the focus off that agenda.
Christians account for roughly 2% of India's population. They've always been an integral part of society, but some within the community say their relatively small number makes them a target for those who are trying to use religion to divide people. Nidhi Dutt, Al Jazeera, New Delhi.
Well, let's bring in our guests for today's discussion. In New Delhi, John Dayal, spokesman for the United Christian Forum for Human Rights. In London, Sandipto Dasgupta, an international fellow at the King's College India Institute. And also in New Delhi, Rakesh Sinha, director of the India Policy Foundation think tank. Gentlemen, welcome to you all. Thanks for being on this edition of Inside Story. Now, India, of course, is a tremendously diverse nation, and there have been communal tensions in the past between Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs and others. John Dayal, let me begin with you. Why should the current tensions be of particular concern? Is India's secular nature under threat, in your opinion?
I think not just the Indian religious minorities, but civil society in general and the citizenship. The fear is not only about religious freedom. The fear is about a very large group of other freedoms, because the attack, I think, is on the constitutional guarantees of civil liberties and religious freedom and a lot of other freedoms. Socialist freedoms, for instance. For the religious minorities in particular, the massive hate campaign, the targeted violence are issues of concern, not just to the Christians, of which I am a representative, but to Muslims and even to other religious minorities. So yes, these are issues of great concern to us as citizens of India.
Okay. Sandipto, in London, some people have said that those who've attacked the churches, the recent attacks that we've seen, that those who've attacked those churches are on the fringes, that Hindus generally don't have a reputation for religious extremism. Do you agree with that, or do you, as John in London, see a real attempt today to establish dominance on the part of Hindu nationalists?
I think I will sort of, reluctantly agree with the second thing that you said, which is because if you look at the party in power, the BJP, and the part of the movement they've come about as, there is a clear, intention to create some kind of a Hindu majoritarian polity, as well as sort of, fuse the idea of what it means to be an Indian with the idea of who is a Hindu.
But
so kind of bring those things together against a kind of multicultural, syncretic idea of Indianness.
How precisely are they trying to assert their ideology and agenda? Can you give us a concrete example?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's been a part of a really almost, since independence, there's this movement of which BJP is just a part of called the RSS. It's a larger Hindu majoritarian movement, and their stated goal is to basically that India is what they call a Hindu state, a Hindu nation. And the idea of Hinduness, which they also define very narrowly, and the idea of Indianness, the things should be brought together and almost the same. So there is really not much of a space for other kind of identities in that ideology. This is the stated ideology, right? So now that hasn't yet translated in any kind of actual legal changes in Indian state, I would say. But you could see all these little incidents, right? So all this, just not these incidents in Delhi the last few weeks, but also across India, the questions around conversion, the questions about the statements made by ministers and MPs of the ruling party, and most importantly, the fact that the Prime Minister has yet to make a statement condemning any of those things. So those ministers or MPs still have their jobs, and he has not made a strong statement on any of these incidents.
But I just want to get Rakesh's view on the subject we're discussing today. Rakesh, do you agree with what we've heard so far, that secularism in India today is under threat?
I think they don't know the realities of secularism in India. Indian secularism has a long tradition, and the second oldest mosque, Cheraman Mosque, is in India. After the Mecca Masjid Mosque, there is a Cheraman Mosque. It was built by a Hindu king. So there is no question of secularism in threat. India is a secular because its majority community is secular. They believe in secularism, and they are misrepresenting the ideology of the RSS. RSS, Hindu nation, is a synonym to the Indian nation. It is an adjective of the Indian civilization and culture. It is not an objective. So it is not a theocratic concept. You are free to use. You are free to condemn it. You are free to reject it. RSS is not imposing. Second thing, I am just saying that stray attacks on the churches. These attacks were done by the criminals. They are doing in hiding. No organization has on these attacks. And I will remind you, in 2000, in Bangalore, 2 churches were seriously attacked. Still then, there was a propaganda that it was done by the Hindutva forces. Ultimately, eventually, after the investigation, the people who were arrested belonged to the Dindar Anjuman, an organization had headquartered in Pakistan and backed by ISI. In Jhabua in 1999, 4 nuns were unfortunately raped. After the investigation, it was found that the 12 rapists belonged to the Christian community. They had nothing to do with an ideology, an organization, or politics. So similarly, in 2009, in Mangalore, church property was destroyed. 7 people who were arrested were Christians, and they said to the police in their statement that they intended to create a gulf between the majority and minority. So I believe that this is a larger conspiracy to defame the Narendra Modi government and the Sangha Parivar. Sangha Parivar has nothing to do. We believe in the secularism, ethos of secularism. We have a long tradition of secularism. Our Prime Minister and President don't take oath to having his palm or hand on Bible or Ramayana or Mahabharata or Gita, which American President Barack Obama does.
But Rakesh, let me just point out, as John and Sandipto have said, that Prime Minister Modi and the BJP have been criticized on a number of issues considered sensitive to minorities, which account for about 1/5 of India's 1.25 billion population. For instance, a member of his party called on Hindu women to give birth to at least 4 children to counter the growing population of Muslims in India. The Modi administration has also proclaimed Christmas Day as Good Governance Day, Day to mark the birthday of a former Prime Minister, and an old version of the introduction to the Constitution published for India's National Day omitted the word secular. And also Hindu nationalists have been at the forefront of so-called reconversions or mass conversions of Christians and Muslims to the Hindu faith. So can you really talk about a larger conspiracy, as you've said, Rakesh? I mean, isn't there really an agenda here?
You have raised very important 4 points. Let me respond all the points one by one. First thing, that Modi government has observed 25th December as a good governance day. I think Christmas is a holiday, and if any government observes the good governance day, doesn't mean that it is devaluing the Christmas. Christmas is a celebration which has been internalized by the Indian society. All the children in all the schools, even the private schools owned by the Hindus, the children observe Christmas. There is nothing contempt, no contempt for the Christians here. Second related point is, that is the issue of conversion. 7 Indian states, mostly ruled by the Congress party, Indian National Congress, have brought out a law against the conversion. It is Madhya Pradesh, it is Orissa and other states. So there is a demand for a central anti-conversion law, because the conversion is a disputed issue. If you are doing conversion, then there is a disharmony in the society, and we have to stop conversion.
Okay.
One can voluntarily convert himself or herself.
Well, let's get John Dayal to respond, Rakesh. Let's get John Dayal to respond. John, what do you respond to Rakesh? Apologies. John, what do you respond to Rakesh, who says there is no contempt for Christians today in India?
No, Rakesh is a believer and doesn't need a response from me. He believes in what he believes in and can marshal his arguments without really a basis in fact. India, of course, is a very tolerant society, and Hindus are tolerant. Otherwise, there would not have been a single non-Hindu left here after 1947. But even if you attribute it to fringe elements, even if it's 1% of a billion is a lot of people, a lot of fringe, and we can't have that. Who demolished the Babri Mosque? Who killed all those Muslims in Gujarat in 2002? These are questions that will haunt them forever, because there is no answer, there is no statistical explanation. You can say that the 4 nuns were raped and the X percentage of the rapists were Christians. Were they? Were they? Who killed all those people in Kantamal in Gujarat?
Okay, Sandipto, let me bring in Sandipto in London. Sandipto, why do you think Prime Minister Modi has remained largely silent on the church attacks and these other issues that have been raised by India's religious minorities? Why is he silent when during the campaign, his election campaign, he mentioned that India needed to be united in order to develop? Why are we not hearing that same argument and that same rhetoric today?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, I think, and we need to understand this, so there is this perception in the media that Mr. Modi is really all about development, about economic issues, and this is kind of a diversion by the fringe in his party from that main issue. I don't think they're that de-linked, really. I do think that there is a genuine contest within the BJP amongst the business interests, who are very strong and have sort of moved to the BJP, and what you can call this the old school cultural warriors, to use an American term there, and such Hindu nationalists of that sort. But I don't think they're that opposed to each other in some sense. I think Mr. Modi, and if you look at his record, look at his statements, his utterances, he came up through the RSS as a pracharak, and he, at no point in his life has his ideology being against or as a kind of a rejection of the Hindu nationalist idea. He does put, I think, he wanted to privilege the economic idea. I think he thinks that the business interests in his party are the voices he wants to sort of, magnify. But this is a very sort of, very closely linked second tier of the party, which works for the elections. And you can see another thing I just want to mention here, actually, the fact that these incidents are happening before the elections in Delhi. And there have been some important study of political scientists to show how communal riots sort of flare up before elections. Because the polarization
and what impact do you see the tensions having on the elections, on the state elections in Delhi?
His economic message and his religious message. I'm sorry.
Precisely. You mentioned the state elections in Delhi, which get underway on Saturday. What impact do you see the current tensions having on the elections?
it will be hard to say from now, but if you can look at the past and you can look at there are these sort of small-scale. Recently, in Uttar Pradesh, the large state where BJP is trying to come back into power, that there has been systematic communal tensions flaring up. And this is not just sort of my opinion, it's actually facts studied by political scientists. Most of the communal tensions flared up around elections and around the constituencies where the elections were happening. So there is clearly some, I think the BJP perceives, and maybe not incorrectly given the history, that there's some electoral gains to be made by creating this sort of polarization and tension among Hindus
But haven't
Muslims.
all Indian political parties, though, played communal politics? It's not just the BJP, is it?
You can say that, and that will be true. That I mean, there's a certain, but it's important what kind of communal politics BJP is playing and why that's specifically more dangerous. So I'm sure Mr. Sinha can talk about how Congress had certain Muslim or Sikh leaders or Christian leaders saying something or the other. But the important thing if BJP is it has a clear majoritarian line, a Hindu majoritarian line. Hindus are nearly 83% population. And I think in any democracy, especially one in India which has different kinds of religion, ethnic groups in it, a strong majoritarian line where the party in power sort of supports the majority community in a very strong way, has a very, very dangerous tendency for any democracy, I would say, not just India.
Rakesh, let me just ask you this. Prime Minister Modi, during the campaign prior to his election, emphasized, the need to reduce communal tensions in India. He spoke about pluralism and moving forward. By not addressing the current issues that we're seeing today, the current tensions, is he not undermining his principal project, what he talked about during the campaign? Why is he not addressing the issues today?
No, I think why Prime Minister should make a statement on such trivial issues. The Home Minister already met the Christian delegation. They have assured. I think Christian delegation was satisfied. They also know that these are stray incidents. They are not the serious communal violence. And if had there been any organized group which had on this such incident, then it could have been Modi should have been stepped in. Second, I am raising the question that development is one issue, but you cannot kill the sociological debate. They want to kill sociological debate on conversion. Why we are afraid from the sociological debate on conversion? Why you want to proceed with the conversion? When in 1978 there was a bill by O.P. Tyagi in the Indian Parliament against the anti-conversion. Then Mother Teresa intervened, and Morarji Desai, the then Prime Minister, said that the service and the conversion can't go together.
But why is conversion such an issue? Let me ask you this, Rakesh. Why is conversion such an issue? I mean, is there evidence to show today any sizable conversion of Hindus to Christianity or Islam in India today?
No, the question is that you are misusing the Article 25, which gives the freedom of a religion. Just see in the tribal belt, the poor people are being converted in large number. Dalits are being converted in large number. When you are converting the people, this is a kind of project. Conversion can be right of a people. Anybody can convert himself or herself. But when you are doing as a project, why are you afraid from the central law? The fundamental question is that why missionary? There should be difference between missionaries and the Christians. Here there is a dialogue with the missionaries, not with the Christians. Christian populations are very peaceful, loving population in India. There is no problem with the Hindus and Christians. At all, there is no problem. It is a certain vested elements which have their links in the West and getting a huge donations. They want to create such problems because it is a kind of a religious and political shop for them. How will they get enough money? And how will they get the support from the international network? So they are creating propaganda at the international level. I think they are harming the Indian nationalism. They are harming the secularism of the country. We have a long history of secularism. Christians are the people who are very peace-loving people.
John Layal, go ahead.
I wonder why are then Muslims so victimized? They have no conversion project, to use Mr. Sinha's felicitous phrase. They are not financed by American missionaries. So why demolish the Babri Mosque? Why kill them in such large numbers in Gujarat? They never convert. Why is this so-called fascination with missionaries targeted also at Muslims? I think this is just a red herring. The basic project is a militant effort to see Indianness as Hinduism, religious nationalism as the political argument. And that vote bank politics is not vote bank appeasement of minorities, but the vote bank of the majority. And that is the real threat to the secular and socialist character of India. That is the real threat to the idea of India, of which I am a citizen.
Okay. Sandipto, it is true that Prime Minister Modi's politics, just coming back to him, are deeply rooted in Hindu nationalism. Do you think, if need be, he will distance himself from the very organization that helped him take power?
That is something to look out for. I somehow doubt that's going to happen because, as I said, they're actually closely linked. I mean, if you think of this, this is not just some crazy fantasy of a loony right wing of the party. This is linked to their electoral politics, they're linked to their local bases, how they arrange and organize at local levels, and what a large percentage of their very core constituency believes. So it's not really some kind of a mad fringe which you can easily dissociate himself from at no cost.
Do you think the Prime Minister is unwilling or unable to rein in the extremists within his own party? Which one is it?
As I'm saying, I think it's something which is not really a zero-sum game for him, right? It has a cost doing that because it's very much a part and parcel of his electoral strategy, his base, and his party, and his history. So it's not something he can just sort of very easily and without cost break away from. So I would say he's both, I think he's actually structurally unable to do that and hence unwilling. And I mean, I can't really divine his mind and what kind of, what's in his mind, but I would say in terms of political structure, it's something he's unable to really easily move away from.
Prime Minister Modi's reputation has improved after the fallout from 2002, and we've seen a normalization, of course, of relations with the U.S. during President Barack Obama's recent visit. But Obama is still calling on India and Modi to do more to ease these religious tensions. He just returned from India, as we mentioned, and on Thursday, he described India as a place where in past years, religious faiths of all types have on occasion been targeted by other peoples of faith simply due to their heritage and their beliefs, acts of intolerance that would have shocked Gandhi, he said, the person who helped to liberate that nation. Do you think, Rakesh, that, this message that we're hearing from outside of India, from the West, from the United States, is being heard?
I am not surprised. Obama has devalued himself from a world leader to a leader of a Christian community. His remark, his observation and White House statement is based on propaganda, not on realities. I am surprised that White House doesn't get the real realities of India. There is no intolerance in India. There are statements by certain people, they have been scented out. Whole India is a society of 125 crore people. It is not the people of 10 to 15 people. If they are making a statement, they are small people. And media is using these statements just to devalue Narendra Modi government and deride Narendra Modi government. Rashtriya Swayansevak Sangh is a nationalist organization. It has branches in 37 countries, including USA. There has been no problem in any country with the RSS. Second thing I am pointing out, in Goa, the Catholics have voted for BJP. There are 5 Catholics, Christians are the ministers in the Goa cabinet. Deputy Chief Minister is a Catholic. So it is a Goa model. Okay. BJP is expanding. RSS is expanding among the minorities. That is the real concern of these people who are minorities, elites of the minorities. They want to safeguard their own political business.
Rakesh,
that's why they are attacking on RSS on the wrong
Let's allow John to respond. John, you have the last word. Rakesh said something important there, that the outside world, that President Obama doesn't get the realities of India. What do you say to that?
But we in India know the reality in India. Gandhi would not only have been shocked, he was shot by members of the same ideology that so seeks to terrorize the rest of the people of this country. I think that is to be remembered by Indians. And it was the Indian president, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, who on the eve of his Republic Day address to the nation pointed this out, that religious freedom is of a sense. The idea of India is of a sense.
We'll end on that note. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for a very interesting discussion. John Dayal in New Delhi, Sandipto Dasgupta in London, and Rakesh Sinha in New Delhi. And thank you as well for joining us. If you've got anything to add to today's show, go to our program page at aljazeera.com. You can post your comments at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story as well. or send your tweets to @AJ Inside Story. I'm Folly Bah Thibault from the whole team. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.